we go.
As a Lebanese person under the situation I'm in, to condemn resistance to a brutal supremacist settler colony is like asking an Austrian Jew in the 1940s to condemn resistance to Nazi Germany because atrocities. That's all I'm hearing from you, because my entire life, my family has been subjected to constant aggression and war crimes by Israel, because since its existence and founding in this region as a settler colony, a Jewish settler colony implanted in this region, and in a region that's not majority Jewish, so it has to commit constant ethnic cleansing and demographic engineering to exist as a ethno-state, not a normal country, a settler colony ethno-state. Just constant aggression and torture and rape and land theft against my people. They've currently displaced over 1 million in Lebanon, and they're saying they can't return. You have Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich saying they're going to annex southern Lebanon, depopulate it of Lebanese, and replace it with Jewish settlers, just like they've done in the West Bank. You're asking me.
Do you know how much restraint it takes for her to just sit there and not be like jumping out of her skin and cursing him out? Like, I feel so infuriated for her.
And she never like loses her cool. But you could tell like there's a part of her wants to say, like, Piers, you son of a bitch. Like, stop there is no comparison here. And even as things are going really bad,
in place for 15 months since the war that ended in November.
Who did that?
What do you mean? I thought it was over, so I pulled it out. I didn't know.
Well, it was, but I wasn't ready for the next.
Oh, I didn't hit a next one. I just thought I pulled one out. I'm sorry.
So, Rania, if you guys go back, and I don't know if we've done any throwback clips with Rania, but I'll go check in the archive because she's been on a few times. It's been a while, and we'd love to have her back. She would usually come on with Katie. And there was times in the earlier years when we were doing the show where we would do shows in the afternoon. And that's how we were able to have Rania on, because I believe Lebanon is, I'm going to say it's like 10 hours ahead of us or something like that.
It's like 8. I think it's only like 8, but it's still, it's far. And yeah, but you could take this one down though.
No, I can't, because this is the next clip.
Oh, okay.
So Rania obviously has a lot more to say to Piers. And one thing I will say, maybe because he feels a sense of shame, Piers is not exactly cutting her off. He has a propensity to do that with a lot of guests. Personally, because I think he likes the sound of his own voice. But in this case, I think he understands the magnitude of the person he's talking to and why it's so important that he doesn't get in the way. So Rania has a lot more to say here.
There has been a ceasefire in place for 15 months since the war that ended in November 2024 between Israel and Hezbollah. In those 15 months, Israel violated the ceasefire over 15,000 times. I think that context is really important because, yes, I would love to have a national army that can protect this country from aggression from outside. The Lebanese army is not capable of doing that because it's dependent on hand-me-down weapons from the Americans. The Americans give the Lebanese army weapons that could never be used to challenge the Israelis. And they're dependent on donations from the Gulf monarchies. So because of their donors, they are actually not able to even respond to Israeli aggression. In fact, in this war, Piers, the Israelis have killed several Lebanese army soldiers, and there has been no retaliation from the Lebanese army because they literally cannot retaliate. So all that's to say, we don't have a national defense strategy in Lebanon. The government has done nothing to protect the people of the South who had been being bombed and having their land occupied for the last 15 months. So as a result, it's that vacuum with which you have a non-state actor like Hezbollah coming in, stepping in, and protecting their villages and people from Israeli aggression.
What she's talking about is that's what lends itself to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, because the state of Lebanon, the nation state of Lebanon, does not really have an effective defense mechanism for its people. It's a problem. I don't know how much of that is intentional. I don't know how much of that is based on, our empire and our interactions versus really just not being able to. I don't know, but I do know that the state military is very weak compared to Hezbollah. And so Hezbollah has been the strongest defender if not only defender of the people in Lebanon who have been brutalized really for about 70 years, 75 years. But, there's more than 1 million people in Lebanon that are like displaced right now and can't be at home. It's a lot of people.
And all because the Greater Israel Project must continue no matter how many people have to die in the process. In addition, when I see this, I am reminded once again of how much power and control the Israel lobby has had over Hollywood, for example, for many years. I think of the Delta Force. Remember, Beirut was the central focus of the film. So when you see
that propaganda, that military industrial complex propaganda is so rampant. And I mean, it's usually the bad guys are always dark.
And this is why when people want to celebrate Chuck Norris, it's like, you do understand that he was a willing participant in being a Hezbollah agent, if you will. He had no problem talking about how much he loved Israel and how much he hated the brownies, if you will, and how he was just bringing freedom and liberty and justice to the Middle East, right? That's what he was doing. No, not at all. This is, again, just another example of how we pillage the world, and it's never enough. How could it be? If you could get more, you get more. And if we have to kill a whole bunch of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions, why would they hesitate? You know how many Dick Cheneys are out there in the world? They're all over the place.
Well, look at this. So that you've got right here, you've got Ziohel trying to conquer the entire West Asia, area. And then you've got Trump saying he's going to have the honor of being the president that gets to take Cuba. He said that, I'm going to take Cuba. So, this colonial...
Excuse me, I am going to have the honor of taking Cuba. You got to say it right. With honors, I take Cuba.
I mean, that's where we are, is the death throes of empire. And they're desperate. And they're just doing everything they can to maintain their position. But it's not going to matter. It's just not going to matter.
This is Israel's 7th invasion of Lebanon since 1978. Some of those invasions preceded Hezbollah's existence. Hezbollah grew out of Israel's 1982 invasion and occupation of Lebanon. Because if you invade and occupy any country, there's going to be local resistance to that occupation. And people are going to take arms from whoever they can. In the case of Hezbollah, they took arms and funding from Iran. That's absolutely true. And they did that to fight off an Israeli occupation that they eventually pushed out in 2000 and again in 2006. And there was invasion in 2024, and there's an invasion again. The only reason they haven't been able to take Lebanon is because of fierce armed resistance in the south that even preceded Hezbollah, but that's what Hezbollah grew out of.
See, there it is. They're not a terrorist group. They're a resistance group that is fighting to protect its people and its land from foreign invaders.
What have you been saying since October 7th? One person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Always. And it's at this point, the word terrorist has no meaning. It has no meaning anymore. And in a way, I'm glad, because it's a stupid fear-mongering type of word anyway, but it has no meaning. But no, Hezbollah are not terrorists. Hezbollah are not terrorists. Hamas are not terrorists. They're political organizations born out of oppression and resistance. That's what they are. So, you could call them whatever you want, but the facts are the facts.
When you think about just how inhumane, as we mentioned, these people are, it's not a one-off situation. I mean, obviously, we see what happens when you go down the road that they've gone down when it comes to, let's say, burning a child, a toddler, with cigarette butts. Again, you do those things because you get off on it. There are people who actually enjoy torturing people. It's one of the reasons why they feel good about what's going on, but they're also not too equipped to deal with the resistance that's coming.
They're
there
not
was-
dealing with it now.
No.
They're going to implode because they're spread too thin and they're having just as much problems internally in their military in Zio hell that we are having here. They're having a hard time being able to maintain the body count that's necessary for the level of oppression that they seek to do. And it's eventually gonna, they're running out. They're running out.
What is, to that end, I guess I'm a little perplexed. I'm still trying to better understand exactly what the end game is, what they think is going to happen. Like, are they blind? Do they not see how much we hate their guts in this country?
They just don't care. They don't care. And because they really don't think that it'll have any impact on them. They really feel entitled and they feel very, I'm surprised that they still feel so protected given how many people have fled and how hard they're being hit, but yet they still walk around like they're fearless about any sort of repercussions. But there will be repercussions. There will be repercussions for them, and there will be repercussions for the people in this country, military and otherwise, that supported this. So the people in this country that are in the military, you need to be calling that conscientious objector hotline because they are going to come for you and you are going to be the first people hanging out to dry.
They are. And as if you think that things are not changing, especially from a military standpoint, you're dead wrong, because it's changing every minute of every day. This is not being heralded in the news, and you're not going to hear much about it. The United States military is raising the acceptance age, the eligibility age to join the U.S. military from 34 to 42. This is very similar to what other countries,
Ukraine
and Russia, what they've had to do. The only reason that something like this happens isn't necessarily because they need to recruit more people to go fight a ground war. It's that they are fighting a ground war and they need more domestic military people to be working here in the States because they're going to be sending a lot of soldiers overseas.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
You don't think Trump is going to pull this?
Well, I think he's going to try. I think that he's going to start off. I think it's going to be a suicide mission. I think there's going to be 5,000 Marines coming back in body bags. I think that people are not going to stand for it. And at the end of the day, they have no strategy. They have no means of getting ground forces in that is viable. And they have no means of supporting forces once they are in. That's a problem. Okay. Now, again, I am not a military expert, but I know a few, and they all say the same thing. And I am quoting, as I saw, one of my favorites, you guys know, Colonel Larry Wilkerson, and I quote, called it a suicide mission. So that's what, they're going to try to do that. And it's going to go very poorly. And there will be no way to continue with, they have no way to get ground troops on the ground to Iran. No. There's no staging area. They've taken out all the basic, like these people are living in a fantasy world, but it won't be able to be logistically possible for them. There's no way to have a ground invasion.
Well, that's the whole thing about Karg Island, which I really do not understand. To what end does that matter? What is the whole point of that end?
Well, they think it'll give them control over the strait. They think that they will then somehow be able to be sharing control of the strait. You're not. Iran can reach that island. They are going to kill you. That's what's going to happen. There's no sharing control of the strait. That's not happening. And yet that's what they're going to try. So they're going to try to do that. They're going to fail egregiously. And a whole bunch of people are going to come home in bags. And that's where we're at. But there will be no major ground invasion because they do not have the means to get people on the ground. That's a problem. See, you can't have a ground invasion if you have no means of getting there.